So I'm Roy Anibal, born in Barberton, Ohio. Lived there for 3 months till I was old enough to travel. Then we went to my grandmother's place in Saratoga Springs, New York. And my father found us a place in Niagara Falls, and then my mother and I went there to be with Dad. I was raised on a little bitty goat farm about 20 miles north of Niagara Falls. Education, oh gosh, oh geez. I'm a hippie through and through. I was a hippie jeweler for a while in Vermont, had a little farm in Vermont, 28 acres. Trout stream 20 foot off the back porch. Then I was there for a while, several years, and then I jumped on a bicycle and headed for South America and ended up at Livingston Manor. I started meditating in 71, Livingston Manor in 75, and that was when I found out what the TM movement was really all about. I had no idea before then. It was just like, it was just some neat thing to do, and I had some pretty good experiences, by the way. Drove my TM teacher a little crazy. So I had on my bicycle in South America, and little monkey stole the bicycles in Washington, D.C. Hung out at the College Park, Maryland Center for a while. And they said, oh, we know where you're supposed to be. So, oh, good. It's good to know. So I went to Livingston Manor. Was there for 75, 76, 77. Learned TTC there. Phase 2 in Buffalo, New York. Went back to Livingston Manor, South Fallsburg for a while. Then went back to school. I first went to school at Columbia University. I was 62. But motorcycles and women took over there, and that was into that. But I was married when I went back to school in 82. And I essentially tutored my wife, actually. You want to learn something, you want to tutor somebody, that's how you learn. And became a CPA. Worked for arguably the largest CPA firm in the world. Argued because they classify themselves differently. Who's got the most clients, who's got the most money in revenue, who's got the most professionals, who's got that. But back then there were 8 top ones, and I was amongst Pete Marwick Mitchell. I was there when they merged with Kleinveld in Europe. It became Kleinveld Pete Marwick Goodler. I worked there for 2 years. You have to work under a professional for 2 years in order to get certified and pass the CPA exam. So once I'd done that, we moved to Tucson, Arizona. I was there for 18 years. And that's when I got my first Harley. I had a lot of motorcycles before then, but got my first Harley in Tucson. She was a beast. So I ended up in Livingston Manor after the little monkeys, probably that's not the best term in the word, but they were monkeys, stole our bicycles in Washington, D.C. Stole 2 of them. Actually, if I would have had presence of mind, I would have jumped on my girlfriend's bicycle, pulled up next to the kid and sprayed him with the dog spray, but I didn't have presence of mind. I just started running, And the policeman told me I was real lucky I didn't catch him. Turns out that was one of the highest rape murder districts in the world, probably. Besides maybe, whatever. So that's how I ended up in Livingston Manor. And before Livingston Manor, I really didn't appreciate what Maharshi was. I saw him at Livingston Manor. He walked by me. He stayed at Livingston Manor up in the executive for, I've forgotten how long. He did some video recordings in they had an amazing video studio in Livingston Manor at that time. And but I did have visions of him, and I started to appreciate it more from those visions because there was a presence in the vision that captivated me, you might say. But I still didn't really appreciate him for what he was. And then I was in South Fallsburg. We went to South Fallsburg when they split Maharshi split the population. Livingston Manor then became all men. South Fallsburg became women and couples. So we got married in order to stay together. We had a celibate relationship, actually, but we wanted to be together. So, and I saw him in South Fallsburg. I saw him. I saw him. I saw the people arguing with him about splitting up the South Fallsburg and Livingston Manor thing. And I became to appreciate him more then, to watch him interact with those people. Those people were talking nonsense, and he treated the nonsense as if it were intelligent conversation, which I thought was kind of fascinating. When I got to Livingston Manor, all staff had to take SCI. And that's when it hit me, really. I mean, there was a building there they called the Palace. And there was a lot of new staff then, because that's when they first started staffing Livingston Manor. So it was like, I forgot, it was a huge number that they brought in. When they were processing us, when they first brought us in, they had these desks and lines up to the desk. And you went up and talked to the people. I remember they asked me what I wanted to do with the movement. So and they didn't like my answer. I said, I don't know. I just know I'm supposed to be here. And they didn't like that answer. And I thought it was one of the best answers that probably heard all day, but neither here nor there. Because I got sent there, I mean, nature stole them bicycles on me. Nature took me to the TM Center in College Park, Maryland. Nature sent me to Livingston Manor. I just knew I was supposed to be where I was supposed to be. I knew that that's how it came together. I mean, it was too spontaneous. The way it all happened, it was just way too spontaneous. Besides, when I left on the bicycles, I just left it open. I got on the bicycle and the doctors were talking about cancer in my throat and all this stuff, And I wasn't going to stay in Vermont under the circumstances that I was there with. I'm not going to go into that. But be that as it may, so that's why I got on the bicycle. I just said, okay, nature, here I go. Got on the bicycles and headed for South America because I heard Marcy was in South America. Anyway, Livingston Manor, SCI, Palace, and there was a lot of us in the Palace there, watching the SCI. They were tapes. We called them tapes, and they were tapes. Today they call them tapes. They're not tapes, but be that as it may. So SCI, and my mouth dropped open. I was flabbergasted because I had no idea up until that point what was really going on. I knew I was supposed to be there. I had faith in nature, blah, blah, blah. But I had that before TM. That was something I came by early on. But everybody around me was sound asleep. Everybody, all the other students were like just, crashed. Marcy can do that too, But I was like on the edge of my seat, mouth dropped. I was like, wow, man. And that was when I realized what was really going on. The depth and the breadth of it all was just amazing. And I'm taking SCI again now, by the way. And, it's amazing what you didn't hear back then, even though your mouth was dropped open and totally fascinated by the man, Sorry, I get dreaming about that. Motorcycles. So I've had several. My first one was a little moped, actually, Sears Roebuck. And I was 16 years old, I think. Didn't have that one for long. And then when I got to, 1964. And I went to the local BSA dealer, Birmingham BSA, a British bike. And I bought a 1963 Super Rocket. That was a fast bike. I had that one for a year or two. And then I got a 65 Lightning. That was a really fast bike. Souped it up a bit, straight pipes, 10.5-to-1 compression pistons. That might have been all I did to her. I can't remember. At any rate, she was strong. Oh, she was real strong. A noisy little devil. And then when I was in Vermont, that one I crashed. A taxi cab did a right-hand turn while I was signaling on 7th Avenue in Manhattan. Picked me off. At any rate, then when I was in Vermont, I got a 68 BSA Lightning. The owner of the shop owed me a favor. and he had this thing in a crate. This is a prime bike. 68 Firebird Scrambler was was a very special bike. And he had a couple of them in crates that he was saving, and he owed me a favor. So he sold me one of them at a good price. So that's what I had in Vermont for a while. And then that was that until I got to Tucson, Arizona with my second wife. And she wanted me to get a motorcycle because I told her stories in the motorcycle days, and I used to ride with some crazy people. And she said, I wanted to share that with you. Let's get let's get a motorcycle. So I got a Honda Shadow 1100, pretty strong bike, a V-twin. And then she wanted to get a Harley. So I kind of looked down my nose at Harley in the old days, the British days, because those British bikes were just, go anywhere, vest and jump and fly around and whatever. You can't do that with a Harley. And after riding that Shadow for a while, because that's a bigger bike, heavier bike, and I got used to that feeling, So we got Harley and souped that puppy up. Threw 10.5 to 1 compression pistons at her, reworked the heads, 3/4 race cam, strong exhaust, Mikuni carburetor. She was a beast. Oh, crack a throttle on that thing, you better hold on, She'd just jump. Remember one time I was in town in Tucson, and parked cars and traffic and everything, and I don't know whatever happened. I don't know why I did it, but I cracked the throttle, and all of a sudden everything is just flying by me. It's like, whoa! She was a great bike. Her name was Nightwing. She was a black bike, and a guy I knew that used to do all the high-end paint jobs for the local outlaws. Local outlaws, them were the ones in the center of Tucson, Dirty Dozen. Up north were the Huns. Down south was the Devil's Disciples. And out west was the Booze Fighters. Booze Fighters, that original movie with Marlon Brando taking over the town, that was actually based upon a real event. The Booze Fighters were that crowd, but it was nothing like what the movie was. They were guys home from the war, and they were good guys. They weren't. Booze Fighters are for a motorcycle gang. They were good guys. 30 Dozen, Huns, Devil's Disciples, and bad folk. At any rate, the guy who did a lot of the really good paint jobs for the Dirty Dozen, Michael Starr, put a set of Ghost Flames on Nightwing. Ghost Flames are done with pearlescence, and they're just you don't see them all the time. Depends on how the light hits them. And he did 2 layers. One layer real deep, silver, and you couldn't see until the light hit just right. And then the top layer was a rainbow, a blue apron into a purple, red, orange, yellow, and then tipped off in gold. I mean, what a paint job that was. And I saw pictures of it. Gorgeous, gorgeous paint job. And her, boy, I could do anything with her. She was just a nasty little beast, and I got her so she could just idle. Now I got a new Harley after 25 years, and I thought I was just going to get. This is very configured, very much like that old one I had actually. And a rake on the front end is kicked out, and a big strong engine, and la 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 la, chopper style. And I got on this one. I'd forgotten how to ride. You take a slow, tight turn. It's like, guess what? That's real wide. I don't know where I'm going with this thing. It took me a while to get it down. Actually, I just thought I was going to get on and ride, but I'm getting it down. This one is silver. And God, she's pretty. Call her Quicksilver. Got plates on her Q space SLVR. And she's a lot of fun, and I'm working on her. I just got a cam put in her, so she dances a little better. Get that dancing feeling off her. And I'll put a Makuni on her. She come with good. She come used 30,000 miles. She's got a good exhaust on her already, and the cam is really nice. I get that Makuni on her, and then I'll get her. She'll really dance, and then I'll put a ignition module on her. Ignition module, you can retard this. You can retard the spark more at idle. So, because stock, they all come idling fast, and they come advanced spark for a variety of reasons. And so you can retard the spark and get the idle nice and low, so you can get them to just laze along, Quicksilver. Yeah, she's good. She's good. Geezy got a motorcycle too now. He's got a hog. We used to call him piglets, what he's got back in the old days. Sportster, but that was the 883 days. This is a 1200, and it's a strong bike. Beautiful bike too. I never really liked Sportsters, but his I love. Back in New York days, back in Manhattan days, I after that taxi cab picked me off, a friend of mine let me ride his bike. That's one thing they do, riders. When you get in an accident, they put you on a bike right away, because otherwise you're liable to develop a fear of riding. So they get you riding right away. And his was, oh my God, what a bike that was. That was a Sportster, but it was 11-to-1 compression pistons, bore out, nasty cam, chopper style, la, 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 la. And that thing, riding that thing was a real treat. Mad Mike did the pinstriping on it. I don't know who did the paint job. It was a real heavy. Okay, so now Mad Mike did the pinstriping on this nasty little chopper Sportster that this friend of mine let me ride. So that reminded me of P.D. Tessitore. P.D. Tessitore had this Corvette, 63 Corvette. That was a classic fastback with a split window. And he crashed it. Met him in the motorcycle shop. He was up there looking at bikes. And became friends with him. He always used to hang out with this nasty people I used to ride with in the Bronx, South Bronx. Crazy, crazy, crazy people. Anyway, so Petey was getting his Corvette rebuilt because it crashed up. And the guy that was doing the paint job, I can't remember what his name was, told Petey, I had a dream about this paint job. Will you let me do it on your Corvette? He says, yeah, sure, go ahead. What a paint job that was. Gorgeous. The whole basic paint was pearl white. Slightly bigger glints in the pearl than what you got today. The pearls you got today are very, very fine glints. It was like heavy. And then he took green flake, took it over the fenders and down the middle of the car, down the fastback and down the back. And then he took green fogging. You take just this mist of green all around that green flake. Gorgeous, gorgeous car. Just so pretty. It took paint. Talking street talk here. So it won a prize for best paint in the 1965 New York Coliseum show. That'll tell you how good that paint was. That there's a lot of cars in that show. And and Mad Mike did the striping on it. That's how we got to this story about the car. And the night that Mad Mike was there, going to do the striping, right? He was looking at the car to decide how he was going to stripe it. And Pete and I were polishing up the clear coat. That's how you get a real good paint job, a real thick clear coat. You get so the paint's way down hidden, not hidden, but it's just the depth to the paint. And I was polishing it, and when you do that fogging, a lot of times, that's a real art. And a lot of times the gun will spit and put just this little spit mark. And for whatever reason, I got obsessed with that spit mark and ended up polishing off some of the fogging. And I was like, oh dear. And we go back to oh dear. Mike looks at it, Mad Mike looks at it, he says, don't worry about it, I'll put the name there, you know. So when Mad Mike first put the striping on it, he put this real big, thick stripe. And Petey and I go, what are you doing, man? Because pinstriping is normally real fine lines, you know, little designs, you know. He says, don't worry about it. You know, he had something in mind. And like I say, it took paint in the Coliseum show. And that wasn't just the paint job, it was the striping job, it was the whole package. Mad Mike did a striping job on that like I've never seen him ever. I've never seen him do big, heavy, bold lines, you know. And the name of the car was Notorious. One night, Pete and I were riding in that car down in Greenwich Village, and this Pontiac Bonneville goes by with you know the letters you get in the hardware store, you know, for mailboxes and stuff, you know. He had on the side of his car Notorious. Petey went crazy, chased that guy down, because you're not supposed to do that, you know. Take another man's name for his car, especially a famous car. And Petey got up next to me and said, where'd you get the name for that car? He said, from yours in the Coliseum show. And we laughed. Everybody laughed. A good laugh. Anyway, that's the Mad Mike story. So I got this brother. I gave him the name Geezy in the early 70s. Back then they called me the Snarly Rabbit because the hippie jewelry workshop we had there in that 28-acre farm, 175-year-old farmhouse, 13 rooms. I converted 3 of the rooms into the jewelry workshop. At any rate, Geezy, 7 years younger than I am, and he was in college up in, where was he, up north in New York State, up Potsdam or something. And he was dropping out. So I invited him to come stay with me in Vermont. And you might notice I don't say Vermont, I say Vermont because that's how they say it in Vermont, you know. At any rate, be that as it may. So I invited him down to stay because that was a thing to do. At any rate, Geezy is an amazing musician. Amazing musician. Beautiful. I used to have that voice, by the way, before the 30 operations turned this to scar tissue. But he was playing 12-string back then. And he'd play that 12-string like most people play a 6-string, you know, finger picking, and just really had me fascinated. Anyway, he stayed with me in Vermont. In fact, he was living on my farm when I left in 75. And we got the farm in, I don't remember, 71, 72, something. And we had several bands together, several rock and roll bands. I had an upright, electric upright bass. You could bow it and the whole thing. And we did some very interesting music together. We had several bands. I'm not really a good musician, but I just did what he told me to, you know. And I got him down to Livingston Manor, actually, after I was down there. And he was working in the press in Bennington, Vermont, in the Bennington Banner. And I was talking to Ron Levesey in MIU Press in Livingston Manor. They had back then they had that was the place. You know, that's where they printed things. That in Germany, but it was really a Livingston Manor where and Ron Levesey and Ron Levesey and Spencer Smith were in charge of the MIU Press down there in Livingston Manor. Anyway, I talked to Ron because I wanted to get Geezy away from what he was doing. I wanted to get him down there in the midst of what I discovered. And he was already started meditating, by the way. I got him meditating. He and my wife and my girlfriend and whatever else, anybody I could get going meditating. Anyway, I talked to Ron Levesey and I told him, you know, blah, 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 good pressman and everything. He said, well, if he's good as you say he is, get him down here and let me talk to him. So I got him down there and Ron hired him on, and that's why Geezy's been in the movement ever since. He is one of the, if not the best pressman this movement's ever had. He used to run the big 3-color press. I can't remember the big one here, and because he's a very meticulous pressman. He can just, and that's a tricky thing, that multicolor press, because you run several runs and each run makes dots of a particular color. And if you don't get it just right, it just doesn't happen. And he got it. I mean, he's amazing, just amazing. He's legendary, actually. There's people in this movement still in this town know him. I gave him the name Geezy back in, it was a mistake, actually. A friend of mine wrote a play, and in the play there was a character, Giuseppe, and won't go into that play too much. It was interesting. At any rate, and a common Italian nickname for Giuseppe is Gizzy. And I had misunderstood what he was saying, Geezy. And Geezy, that name evolved, and I chose it for him for a variety of reasons, which we won't go into. But it went from the soggy lion, and he called himself the good wizard Anibal. And then I called him Gizzard, and then from there it went to Geezy. And Geezy stuck. Geezy's been his name since then. Geezy and I laugh. I laugh the hardest, and he laughs the hardest when we're together. That never in our lives have we ever laughed so hard as we do when we're together. We have what we call the bro show every Tuesday night. Well, actually, anytime we're together. If you come across us and we're together, you're on the bro show. That's the name of the game. And it might get a little disorienting. But every Tuesday night, we get together, we watch some movie, some series, some something, and we laugh a lot. He is, I'm a loving person. I love to love, to feel that flow of universal love going from here to there to some other person. Him I love like no other, That's about it for Geezy. So me and the wife got into dogs, showing dogs. We started out with Akitas. Mostly people say Akita, I guess. Ours were more traditional looking. Most of what you see in this country are big, huge dogs. The Japanese Akita is a much smaller dog. And ours were in the middle, medium size, but they were marked like the Japanese. Red dog, white face, white paws. Beautiful, beautiful dogs. And we started with them, then we got into Jack Russell Terriers. And one time we had, maybe 30 dogs. We've been to Eukanuba, we've been in Westminster, Crufts, in England, all that stuff. And love those dogs. Now, here's the story. Have any of you seen the movie Hachi, A Dog's Tale? You seen the movie? Okay, highly recommended to see the movie. Joan Allen and Richard Gere. And the dog trainers came to us in a dog show and said, "You got some pretty dogs. Can we lease those dogs for a movie?" And they leased a brother and sister pair. They were, almost identical, except for one was bigger than the other, but they're not identical. Because for any movie about critters, there's not one critter playing the part. They teach certain tricks to the one critter and another critter, and then when it comes time, then the one critter does this and another does the other. So if you see the movie Hachi, A Dog's Tale, one, bring plenty of tissue. Tears of joy, tears of love, tears of grief, tears of. And so they leased those dogs, brother and sister pair, from us, $1,500 a dog. And they're in the movie. And before they leased the dogs, I said to them, "Have you ever trained an Akita before?" "Oh, no. We train dogs all the time. We know." I said, "These are not your normal dogs." Oh, so a couple months later, we get the call. "Oh, okay, you're right. These are not your normal dogs. We can't figure them out." What they had to do, there's two important steps. One, the dog had to think it was their idea. 2, you're not their trainer, you're not their boss, you're their friend. They got to respect you. And once they figure that out, you watch this movie and you say, oh, it's unbelievable, unbelievable. And anytime the dog is contemplative and into things, that's the boy, the brother. And anytime there's the loving and the happy and that's the girl. Their name were Clapton and Layla. And when the trainers, after the movie, they came to us and they said, in all my years of training dogs, I've never asked a breeder this question. I say, what's that? Can we buy these dogs? You can have them. Because they had bonded so tightly. We'd go to the ranch and visit them when they're training, and Clapton and Layla come up to us, oh, Roy, oh, Deborah, oh. Once that was done, they go back and sit by the trainers, and they look up at them, You could just see they had bonded. So they loved us, but these were their people, So we said, yeah, you can have them. And they never gave us credit on the movie. Okay, that's enough of that. So talking about dogs, in Vermont, I had a German Shepherd. Angel Sauce was her name. And first off, she was not your typical German Shepherd. She was smaller. She was sable marked. She wasn't black and tan. And she wasn't a kangaroo. You look at German Shepherds today, they bred them to do that stance, with the long legs. They can't hardly walk anymore. And their hips are all shot just from breeding for that look. But her hindquarters were square, solid. In fact, she could stand up on her hind legs and walk across the room. I taught her not to put her paws on the windowsills. This is the Vermont. This is in the farmhouse in Vermont. By the way, Susan Seifert came to our farmhouse in Vermont. Bill Burnell used to come through Vermont, and he'd stay at our place when he was teaching TM around Vermont. And he had Susan stay there when she was doing the same thing. Anyway, Angel Sauce. She could do all the tricks. She was amazing. She was so intelligent. She blew my mind. And that's why I say every man's entitled to one good dog in their life, and the Angel Sauce was mine. Windowsills. So I taught her not to put her paws on the windowsill. So when she wanted to look out the window, she'd stand up on her hind legs and dance around and look out the window. She was, oh, God. She had a litter of puppies. Now, this will tell you how much she loved me. I'm going to cry for a second here. This will tell you how much she loved me, how much she trusted me. So she was having her puppies. And I was breeding for one specific puppy. I wanted a red female. We bred her to a strikingly red and black German import, Ostdorf von Osmond. He was, the monks at New Skeet have him. The monks at New Skeet still breed German Shepherds, by the way. Anyway, so a black male, a black female comes out, another couple of sables, and then comes a red female, the one I wanted. Now, what dogs do instinctively, the moment that puppy comes out, they go in there and they bite the umbilical cord to sever it, la, 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 and go about that. And they're fast as lightning. And but you have to watch, because if they bite too close, they'll get an umbilical hernia. And so the what I wanted, the red girl. And Angel jumps in there and she starts to bite too close. Before that, they swallow the placenta, by the way. So how close they are to the puppy's belly is more than just accuracy, because peristalsis is taking over with that placenta. And Angel was going to bite too close to the puppy's tummy. Sorry. And I said, Angel, drop it. And she regurgitated that placenta and let go of that puppy. And then I put my fingers on the umbilical cord so that there'd be enough space. And I said, Angel, okay. And she went in. But just, none of you people are crying. I don't know, something wrong with you. So you asked me what my plans are. One, I'd like to find someone to spend the rest of my life with. I thought I had someone, but it didn't work out. Not from my side, but from her side. What the love of my life is now is Maharshi's knowledge. So that's what I would like to find. Someone who really appreciates the depths of Maharshi's knowledge as he speaks it, not as it's interpreted through another teacher's writings. Because the man has put down knowledge for us that's eternal. And anyone that I know that really appreciates his knowledge looks at a recording that they saw years ago and they hear things that they never realized were in that recording. Because he speaks from the point of infinity. He speaks to everyone. One time in the dome, somebody was saying one thing or another to him, and he became a little bit strong with them. And he said, don't try to defeat me. I will not be defeated. Anytime you hear my voice, I'm talking to you. And that's what he's done in all these knowledge programs, every recording he's ever made. That is infinity speaking to infinity. And every time one hears it, that man is talking to that one directly. And there's something new to be had that was not had the last time one listened to that man speak those same words. My greatest desire is to grow as much as I possibly can in this lifetime. And I probably will get another lifetime. If I don't, that's all well and good. But I'd rather get a couple of 100 years in a body with that knowledge rather than having learned it at this time of my life. I'm 81. I just turned 81, 2025 in August. I probably got another good 20, probably another good 20 years in this body. You're not going to find too many 81-year-old men slinging around a big Harley, I'll tell you that right now. And although I'm not so good as I was back in the 90s, I'm getting there. And I will be again. Jay Gurdev.